Alright, this is the latest movie by Aneesh Chaganty, who previously made a movie called Searching. And a bit of a tangent here to start off with, because what made that movie memorable to me was the fact that I had the idea for almost the exact same movie a few years before. And it just goes to show that no matter how unique you think your ideas are, someone else probably thought of it too. But anyway, as much as I'd want to praise that movie, I do feel like it fell kinda flat. I don't think the execution was quite where it needed to be, and there were some glaring issues with the writing as well. Some plot holes and just some logical inconsistencies that bothered me. However, going into this one, I actually didn't realize it was made by the same guy who'd made Searching. So I went into this expecting nothing, and the past experiences with his previous film didn't really weigh in on it. Which I bring up because, interestingly enough, I noticed some of the same issues with this one too, independently. Because there are a few problems with the logic here and there, and a number of things with the overall writing annoyed me a little bit. There are just moments sprinkled throughout the movie that made me go, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or why didn't they just do it that way instead? And the prime example of that is what I'll call the rooftop sequence that is just so long and convoluted for no reason. I mean, they just made it so overly complex for no reason at all when there's a much easier and simpler way to go about it. And the character is smart, it's not like they couldn't have thought about the simpler solution either. Because the solution they actually went with requires infinitely more thought and planning. And overall too, I couldn't shake this B-movie feel throughout the entire film. I don't really know why I got that feeling, but maybe something about the editing? How it does certain cuts and reveals certain things. I guess it's just the overall presentation and the writing combined. But yeah, something about this just gave me the feeling that this was a cheap movie made fairly fast. But with that being said, to the movie's credit, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. And none of the problems I had with the movie managed to actually ruin it for me. And part of the movie's success is probably just how intense it gets at times. Because it gets really intense at times and it manages to keep the tension high too throughout most of the movie. And as far as pure entertainment value goes, this one pretty much nailed it. I will also say that Kiera Allen did a pretty decent job as the daughter and the main character here. Because as far as I can tell, this is her first movie, and putting a movie like this on the shoulders of a young first-time actor was a risky move. But it worked, so kudos to her and whoever cast her, because it could have been a disaster. Sarah Paulson also did a very good job as the mom and brings in just enough cheese to make it even more entertaining too. And those two are pretty much the only ones on screen most of the time as well. So if they didn't do a good job with this, things would have fallen apart immediately. Which I guess brings me to the overall story here, which deals with a single mom who's taking care of her sickly daughter. A sickly daughter who's now in her late teens and is about to head out in the wider world for the first time. But as one might very quickly realize, things aren't necessarily what they seem like. And I thought the way the movie approached the story was very interesting. And while I had my suspicions about certain aspects from the very beginning, it did a fairly good job trying to mislead and misdirect me from the start too. And I liked that, even though it turned out that it was largely predictable and I saw most of it coming. But it did manage to throw in some curveballs too, which I always appreciate. However, I have to say that the very end didn't quite work for me, it just didn't quite do it for me. I feel like they should have gone with some other alternative ending, because this one just felt a bit wrong. It didn't feel like it fit the character of the daughter, and it kinda ruined the image of her the movie had just spent 90 minutes building. So yeah, it didn't exactly end on a high note, but I will say I still very much enjoyed this movie as a whole. I mean, it's not high art, it has some serious issues, but just as a piece of entertainment, it works well enough. And that makes me inclined to give this one a solid 7. Boop. But would I recommend it? Sure, why not, but I would suggest trying not to be too critical. Because this is a movie that will start crumbling under too much scrutiny. But you know, maybe give it a look if you just want to have a good time, or maybe don't. Either way is fine with me, after all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel because that would be fantastic.